Testing 1, 2, 3. This will be the April 16th, 2014 City Council regular meeting.
She called me a couple days. No, we can make that occur.
Our parents, my sister and her family.
My husband actually requested it yesterday.
Okay?
Oh, really?
Every year we pick a lot.
Let's do it. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting of the city of Satellite Beach, April 16th, 2014, approximately 7 p.m. Please join Councilman Montanaro with his prayer and a moment of silence. In pledge.
Lord, thank you for bringing us together tonight to make decisions for the residents of our city. Please continue to be with our military men and women who are deployed on behalf of us all over the world. Protect them and return them to their loved ones safe. Please continue to watch out over resident Bud Wade, who made a remarkable recovery since our last meeting, and for the new liver implanted into resident Don McClendon over the weekend at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. We ask for his continued good progress. Lord, there's so much negativity and conflict in our nation and the world. We look to you for intervention to bring civility back to all of us, please. And all God's people said, Amen. If you'll join me in a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 3, citizens' comments. This is for non-agenda items. The floor is now open. Hearing none, close the citizens' comments. Move on to city council comments. Who would like to start?
Here we go. Just one. Courtney and I attended the Space Coast League of Cities meeting on Monday night and spoke with the board of directors about the CFAL initiative. We gave our presentation, and at the end of our presentation, they voted unanimously to reinstitute the CFAL process through Brevard County. We offered to take the lead on that. Courtney's working on the resolution for passing out to us for consideration for mayor's signature, and then also going to forward that to other cities for their consideration as well. Courtney highlighted some of the events that we've done for CFAL, because there was some, as we kind of anticipated, there was a lot of folks that had no idea what CFAL was and how it worked and that sort of thing. So she highlighted some of the initiatives, and I was in contact with Tallahassee last night asking them to send us some ideas that we could use to return to the Space Coast League of Cities meeting next time, so she can present the resolution and talk about it a little bit, and I can talk about some of the initiatives that have worked. But so far, we're back on track. We hope to get all 17 cities signed up. I've also gotten with the county and asked for the county commissioners to also consider the same opportunity, so we have them back on board too. So it went as we'd hoped, Mr. Mayor, and we'll just keep moving forward and see if we can get it going.
Great. Thanks, Mark, for your work on that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Courtney, for being there. Who else?
Saturday, we had the 4th annual Put Kids on Fishing event at the library. It was put on by Anglers for Conservation, and I ran the event, and I had some great volunteers that helped me. We had 16 kids, which was probably the least amount of kids that we've ever had, and it was because our rec department does such a great job with a lot of activities that day. The skateboard tournament was going on, and they had a few other things going on in town, so the event really went well. We had a lot of volunteers that showed up, and I just want to thank them for coming out to help us, and thank the recreation department for doing such a great job. Also, yesterday I met Lisa Caldwell, and she's one of the parents that's working on the Satellite High School project graduation. And she was telling me that they're really short volunteers this year, and Lenore has information on project graduation, and if there are people that might be interested in helping out with that, they're looking for whatever help they can get. And the last thing I wanted to comment on was I've had nothing but great comments from people about the Beachcaster. They're thrilled to have it back. The news that that go out to the public through the Beachcaster has always been something that people look for, and it's great that it's back. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
I attended the South Beaches Coalition meeting, and in January of this year, the seat on the TPO switched to the town of Melbourne Beach. And unfortunately, they did not reappoint Indian Harbor Beach Councilman Scott Nickel to be our voting representative on the TPO. Scott was ideally suited with his engineering background to hold that seat. The person who is the voting rep, our voting rep on the TPO now, is Commissioner Gail Gowdy, who is newly elected on the Town Commission of Melbourne Beach. And that's all I'll say about that. I have some other comments that I would like to make, but with the council's permission, I would like to reserve those for the end of the meeting.
I apologize for being late. I was working and just got back from Winter Park. This is a copy of the letter that Councilwoman Gott has been requesting. It was copied to me. It's to Mr. Mark Lloyd. I was copied. It's an anonymous letter to Mr. Representative Lay Rake, and I'm going to put that in the record for anybody who would like a copy of it. I apologize for not getting it sooner, but there it is.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councilman Dean?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I just have a couple. As I hope everybody knows by now, and Courtney will talk a little bit more about this during her portion, a boiling water notice was put out last night. Obviously, we got it a bunch of hours after it occurred, but if I'm not mistaken, it's on till late or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So, also, Cocoa Beach is going to have something that might be interested to the citizens. It's called Operation Shred. Any documents and so forth that people need to have shredded, they're going to do theirs on April 18th from 9 to 12 at the Country Club, the golf course parking lot. So if anybody's interested and has stuff that needs to be shredded, sensitive documents, they will be there doing that. And I'll leave the rest of my comments for council items.
Just a clarification on that boiled water notice. When exactly is that being lifted?
It's a notice until Friday unless they notify us sooner that they get the results back. They're testing, they're doing bacterial testings right now.
So does that mean on Friday morning when we get up, we can go back without
Yes.
boiling water? Okay.
And then I think, and I had some other comments on that, but after talking to Courtney today on this matter, I think she's going to give it in her city manager's report, and then I want to comment on it from there. Okay, any further council comments? Okay, thank you. Moving on, city attorney's report? I have nothing. Thank you. Okay, city manager's report. Courtney?
Thank you, Mayor. April 18th and April 19th is the Police Athletic League Bike and Rummage Sale, and that's going to be at the Teen Zone at the Community Center from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. On April 19th, we will have a 5K race to benefit To Right Love on Her Arms, which is actually a nonprofit organization dedicated to healing those struggling with depression, addiction, and suicide. Basically, when we do 5Ks with the Running Zone, you register through the actual Running Zone website, and that's outlined on my report as well as the event listing on our website. On April 20th, there will be 3 Easter sunrise services. Because we have a lot of active churches in our community. One will be at Michael Crotty Park, which is the Holy Apostle Episcopal Church. That's a new one. It'll be the first year that they've done this. One at Pelican Beach Park, which is always sponsored by Our Father's House, and it's actually a partnership between Our Father's House and a number of other churches. And then one at Hightower Park, which is Trinity Presbyterian Church, and this is actually, I think, their 3rd year that they've done that. So please avoid driving on A1A if you don't have to during this time. It's kind of dark at that hour, and a lot of our police officers will be having to be directing traffic. I did speak with, I know the church pastors in our community meet, and they have breakfast together, and I asked them to get together and kind of figure this out because it's a kind of a strain on our resources. During this time, a lot of our PD and fire, we have to call them in extra to be at those, during this time, and it's also a holiday, so they are going to work on that next year and see if we can combine some of these. On April 26th, the city and Keeper of Our Beautiful will hold a trash bash at Pelican Beach Park, and you can check in from 8 o'clock until noon. And on April 26th, there will be a prescription drug take-back event organized by our police department. So if you desire, please bring your unused, unwanted prescription drugs to the Satellite Beach Walgreens between 10 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And they will take back those drugs for you. A lot of times people don't know what to do with them, so that's a good time to get rid of them. We did send out our Beachcaster for the April-May publication, and it was mailed to all residents. We've had actually a lot of residents who's requested to have the electronic version, which was encouraging, and we had a lot of happy feedback. So I had people post to my Facebook page, it had people email me, send us through that contact through the website. People stop by City Hall to tell us how much they like it. So it's very popular, and a lot of people were really appreciative of it. I will be in Atlanta, Georgia from Sunday evening, April 28th, until Tuesday evening, April 30th, for the American Planning Association Conference. Andy Stewart will be acting city manager during this time. I will be available, of course, by phone and by email, but I will be out of the area. So I did want to speak a little bit about, before we get to the action items, about the boil water notice and the event last night. I spoke with the city manager today of City of Melbourne because I was somewhat concerned, and I think a lot of others are concerned, that the event started at 5:30. That's when the accident occurred and the water pressure started being affected. And we received a notice to our fire department at 8 o'clock at night. And during that time, we had our first responders. If we had a fire, we would have been in a lot of trouble. So we, immediately when we found that out, we started negotiating with Brevard County for the water tanks and all that to make sure that those were available for us if we had an incident. But during that time, we knew that there was a pressure problem. We just nobody had contacted us to figure that out or to let us know. I didn't get a contact until Florida Today called me. I knew that there was something wrong because my husband witnessed the accident, so I kind of assumed what was happening. I had a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails during that time, and I finally got a phone call from Florida. They were calling me to find out if I knew what was going on, and then they called this Melbourne city manager, and he ended up calling me right after that. He basically outlined the first break was at 5:30, so it was kind of like a two-stage incident, and then it just kept growing in terms of problems. So he received his phone call at 5:30 from a staff saying that it was affecting water pressure, and then about at 8 o'clock is when he got the phone call that it was getting so bad that they had to turn things off, and and that it was affecting the entire beach side and so on. And so they did a reverse 911. It did not work very well. It only hit maybe a quarter of the citizens that it should have hit, and then the press release unfortunately didn't go out till 8:30. So I actually had information on my Facebook page before the press releases went out and the 911 call went out. So it was unfortunate. I think, and they understand that their notification processes broke down. Luckily, the incident from a Public Works utility standpoint was handled perfectly, that they were able to get the water back on so quickly, and it was done, and they were able to replace the pipes fast, and it was done well. The notification process side, they readily admit that it was very faulty, and that they are right now instituting a full, complete report that they will give to the city managers that have them as water providers. And then we will be talking about it on Friday with our Public Managers Association to discuss, when do they call the city managers to let us know what's going on, because I said, we're, even in small cities, we have the ability to probably get the word out a lot faster than you do. So if I would have known at 5:30, I could have had a lot of people already know, they would have been notified really fast. Additionally, the first responder notification really needs to be improved. So we're going to discuss that. I think a lot of the problems with just calling me and maybe calling some of the department heads and things like that, is the changeover in staff is, you know, honestly, throughout the whole county has been so great that we're all kind of new. And it's, you know, sometimes it takes an incident like this to make us sit down and say, wow, we really need to get together on our little emergency management phone tree here and get a process going. So we'll be talking about that on Friday. But I wanted to let you know that we do recognize that there was a huge problem with that. City of Melbourne is taking full responsibility for it. And we will sit down and make sure that we have a good process in place when something wrong with our utility happens again.
Our conversation this afternoon, when, you know, you notified me at 8:30 last night, it started at 5, and this was just a water incident.
Right?
Do we have in place a notification system if it's the 911 system? And per, when we were talking today, you said it can't handle what happened.
Well, that was City of Melbourne, yeah. So, for example, City of Melbourne had to cover 2 cities in the county enclave with that notification process. You know, we would have our city if we had something like that happen. And that's just, you know, maybe 1/4 of what they had to deal with, you know. And their system couldn't get it out fast enough for the population size that they had. So when you normally have an emergency management incident that's widespread, you're usually going through TV, radio, and you know, your news sources to get that information out. When you have something that's happening in a small area, that's generally what you use your 911, reverse 911 for. So they're looking at seeing how they can widen that capacity and get the message out that way. I do encourage residents, and we'll send out some notices through Facebook, to get hooked up with News 13's alerts, because that is a great way to get those alerts. Any press releases that go out that we requested them alert people, they'll do that. And that's what they did last night with City of Melbourne. So some people who didn't get the 911 call actually got it through the News 13 alerts.
Yeah. I know I didn't get a 911, and again, the water is a simple thing. But if it was a spill or something that we really needed to get a hold of our residents in a quick way,
Yeah.
I just think we need to make sure that we have a system in place, not only from our end, but from the county. Because really, if you look at it, if you're talking about Indian Harbor Beach, Satellite Beach, and just that portion of Patrick, that's not a lot of people. I mean, it might sound like a lot, 10, 25,000 people, but from the size that the county is, or an area that a disaster could happen, it would seem to me that the system would need to be a little bit.
Yeah, it was their
better.
CAD system, didn't have the capacity to do it. That was it. And so we'll see what their answer is going to be. I think it's an interesting question, and I think we'll sit down with staff and see what would be our process if we had something like that within our city, and we'll get back to you. It would be a good idea to make that, you know, these incidents always remind you that, you know, and sometimes we get lax when there's none. And it's easy to do that in emergency management. But I think, you know, luckily this incident was handled well from a response standpoint from the utility provider. But it gave, since nothing really horrible happened, but it still gave us a good platform to look at all of our deficiencies at the time. So.
I have an issue on that. You know, I was actually in Palm Beach County, and my phone started ringing, concerned citizens, and Courtney called. I'd already, through the local, had learned what had happened by the time I hit Jupiter and coming home, and Courtney called at 8, and I'm like, so are you calling about the water line break? We were kind of joking about it, but when it affects you, you know, people were pretty upset about it. I'm still getting calls today.
Yeah.
Okay, when can we do this and when can we do that? So.
And I actually got a lot of comments from Facebook. That was one that I actually paid to promote that booth, so it went through everyone, you know, and didn't get clogged up in Facebook's algorithms or whatever. And it went out to, I think, about 5,000 people saw that. And it was shared at least 27 times, I think. So people use that to get it out, get the word out. But unfortunately, that doesn't reach everyone. I mean, not everybody uses Facebook. So, you know, we got to get better at it, definitely.
Thank you.
And the only other item I have is this, your budget calendar. We're last year we started in, I think it was June, but, now we're established. And Andy and I aren't starting in May, so we're able to start earlier. And so we're presenting your budget calendar to you now so you can be ready. These are important meetings, and then we can also get the community, now they understand what meetings the budget's going to be discussed. We would like to go ahead and cancel the July 2nd council meeting in advance of the proposed budget being delivered to council. That helps us, so we're preparing a budget and not also a council agenda packet, and then also gives you all your summer break. So if that works for everyone, we would like a motion for that, so we can go ahead and put that on our calendars and notify the community.
I think we can just do concurrence.
Okay, yeah.
Does that include this too as the
No, I think we need, because in the action item, I'd like to have a motion to accept
calendar?
the calendar. We'll open up for public hearing after that.
I'll make a motion to accept the council budget calendar for 2014, 2015.
I have a motion by Councilman Montanaro,
Second.
second by Councilman Breimer, to accept the council budget calendar for FY 2014-15. Okay. Discussion from council on this item? Everybody look at the dates and
Looks
no
good.
conflict? Okay. At this time, open up for public comment on the city budget calendar for this coming year 14-15. Hearing none, close that portion of it. Any further comment from council? Lenore?
Councilwoman Dean?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gott?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. And from consensus on July 2nd meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I got.
I have a few questions for the city manager. We spoke regarding communities in the classroom. Is there any movement on that item? Basically, communities in the classroom. I was approached by Mr. Finch, who's the civics teacher, about inviting us or staff members to come into the classroom in a civics class, and I was just wondering if that's going to happen since the school year is going to end soon.
There seems to be a disagreement in the faculty about who's going to actually do the communities or cities in a classroom initiative. So I spoke with Mr. French. It's right.
Finch, yes.
Finch. Interestingly enough, I actually went to that classroom in the past. I was invited. I think it was Laura Kennedy who did that initiative before. So I went as a planning director and talked to that class. I remember that. So I've met him before, and he really took that initiative and just ran with it, and actually got quite a bit of recognition for what he's done. Unfortunately, his assistant principal feels that it's more appropriate to move that function into a different, like civic, social studies or something like that, a different classroom with a different teacher. And then when he called me, he didn't seem to know anything about it. So I said, why don't you all get together and let us know what you want to do, and we'll be glad to help you out.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that, because I know they have a new dean over there, so this
Yeah.
is a recent change, and I think it'd be a great initiative to move forward with, and the school year is ending, so he approached me. I had never met him before.
yeah, I think he wanted to bring it back. I don't think he was on the same page as his vice principal.
And then, it's my understanding that the lawsuit against, that the county had filed against the Brevard County School Board was dropped. Can you give an update on that?
Yeah, basically what they did was, part of the contention was that there was no school closure criteria. So since the school board has been presenting that and basically created school closure criteria, that was basically the impetus for the Brevard County Board of Commissioners to drop the lawsuit. So that was part of their argument. So basically, the lawsuit has been dropped, and the county and the cities are moving forward with a revised interlocal agreement for school concurrency, which will include school closure criteria as well as additional criteria that the Capital Outlay Committee feels appropriate for their communities. So we're working on that right now.
Okay. And then one other question. I know there was a letter that was sent out to Thad Altman to the council people that was drafted on behalf of the city. Can you just give a quick update for the people in the audience?
There was
People that are listening.
a bill that was, I think it was filed last year, actually, and he called us to ask how, if it was resubmitted, how it would impact our city. And it was basically a bill that made all privatized military housing tax exempt. So our response to that was, that would be bad. So we outlined all of the issues that we had with that, all of our past history with, the Hunt Pinnacle property and, that housing development, and then also the pilot agreement.
Okay, well, thank you, because I'm being asked questions about it, and I thought it was better that you to give an update.
Any further comments?
Nope.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Courtney, anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Any further questions for Sinatra? Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 7, which is a proclamation. Mothers Against Drunk Driving could not be here tonight, and their proclamation will be mailed. So we'll be moving on to agenda item number 8, presentation and new online registration for the rep. Carrie, thank you.
Hi. Courtney asked if we could give a presentation on the online registration, which has gotten to be rather popular. We've had 91 people since April 1st use our online registration, total of about $10,000 in proceeds. Credit cards used overall between the recreation department, the point of sale in the office, and online is at about 20,000. So what customers do, if they want to do online, we have instructions in here a little bit in our yellow brochure.
Carrie,
and
you
then-
need to talk into the microphone,
I'm
please.
sorry, yeah, let me put it in so I'm talking this way. Instructions are briefly outlined in the summer brochure, but a little bit more clear on the Recreation Department homepage. So, see if I can keep doing this while y'all are talking. So what somebody would want to do is they go to the Recreation Department homepage, click on the Summer 2014 registration. Front page pops up, and it's asked if you want to see the PDF version of the brochure, which is not online, it's just stuff. But that's important for us to keep there because not everything in our brochure is something you register for. For example, Founder's Day would be found in a brochure in the fall, but you wouldn't register for it, so you would never see it online. You know what I'm saying? So from here, you would click on the online registration website. Again, some text tells you how to create a new account, how to begin your program, some refund information, and you sign in up here at the top. And I'm going to use my daughter so I can register my granddaughter tonight for something. If you don't have a password, you put in your email address, but you have an account with us, but you don't have a password with us. You put in your email address and then forget your password, and then you can establish your new password. If you don't have an account with us at all because you've never done anything with us, then you would start with create a new account. So my daughter has an account with us, so she's already got her email address in there. So type in her password and hit sign in. And then some information pops up that she can see about her transactions and her information that's located in our customer database at our recreation office. So we can see her payment history, when she's paid for classes. We can see a receipt if she wants to see the receipt again on how she paid or what she paid for. The receipt shows dates, times that she paid by credit card here, tells the class that she registered for, our refund policy, and the information on the convenience fee for credit card use. Was that one? Okay, thank you. Okay, so then back to here. If she wanted to register for something from here, this bar across here has all of our different programs. Anything in our recreation activity brochure that has a course number, you're going to be able to register online. So the one I was going to choose was youth sports programs. This is the new registration program that was authorized to purchase in October of 2013. So the programs here will list by subcategory. If for some reason we suddenly had horseback riding, we could list that as a subcategory. But each one of these plus signs will show different activities that we're signing up for. So in this case, Little Sports is one of our larger programs. He has several classes, and he'll be doing quite a few camps for us in the summer. So the class that we're going to be looking at is the Little Sports Summer Camp. Over here on this side, it's like an exclamation point. If you hit that, it shows you a whole lot more information about the program. Let's see if I can get to it.
Theoretically.
No, it should work. There it is. So all of this information is entered, as we enter our classes for each season, all of this information is in the data for the class. So each class has a question: how much is the resident fee, how much is the non-resident fee, what's the description, how many spots are available, requirements for gender, registration, online dates, offline dates. So we have to fill all that in for every one of these classes. So in this case, Little Sports, as the camp is held in the summer, tells us who's teaching it, information on how to get hold of this instructor, if they're given us permission to give their phone number out. It has a website that we can go onto and see more information about other programs that he might have. And it also has a Google map as to where this location is for this particular class. So if I wanted to register for this, I click up here under register. And the next screen is going to show me the members of the family that are on the family, but right now the only people on my customer family for use, my daughter, is my daughter Jennifer, who's not eligible because she's too old for Little Sports, it's for 3 to 5 year olds, and Eloise, who is. So I would click that box, click next. It's really simple. I mean, clearly if I can do this, anybody can do this. Next thing that pops up, because remember these people are doing it at home, they're not at our counter where we're having them sign a waiver, is that they click that they're at least 18. You type in your name. And then at the bottom, you agree to the waiver, which clearly you should have read. At this point, I can add this information to my cart, which is always exciting. And there you have it. So the total fee for checkout here is $40. If I go to checkout from here, it's going to add the convenience fee on here of $1.95. The convenience fee is a fee that's charged by the processing company. It does not come to the city of Satellite Beach. We don't collect it. It goes directly to the credit card company and they retain it. So of this $41.95 that the processing company gets, they send the city back $40 and keep $1.95. So it's $1.95 or 2.5%. I'm not going to do, I'll do pay now, but I'm not going to do my credit card, because I thought, well, then everybody, including them, can see my credit card number, so I'm not going to do that. But once you get to this point and you pay and you go all the way through, just like you would at any other checkout screen, what you'll see in the end is this is a screen that shows all the credit card information. And even though I'm under Jenny's name, I can use my credit card because it has who the card holder is. So I can pay for her. In our office, it's interesting because if I was there paying for her, I would be the person that would have to be in the computer, and then the system would allow me to go and pick up a customer from another family. But in this instance, I have to put the family name in of the person who wants to participate, and then I have to pay his grandma. And I don't mind. So anyway, that's how this works. We're very fortunate because the program that we selected in October is integrated with Payments Gateway or Forte, a processing company, and so they're like this. And so any problems that we have, we can call either the processing company or the credit or the registration company, and they help us in a matter of minutes work through any situations. That's pretty exciting, huh? We thought so.
Carrie, first, to your staff, amazing. I read your summer program. There's an amazing amount of programs available for people in the city. And when I hear people say, oh, there's nothing to do, whoa, pick up that pamphlet you guys did and read it. It is astonishing how much you guys do at that rec center, and thank you, because your staff does a lot of work, and I appreciate it. Great program. I hope it works great for you. Questions from council, Carrie?
Good job.
Thank you.
I just want to say congratulations. I'm sure it takes the burden off, having to process everything and everybody coming to the counter. And this is really a question for the city manager, because it just kind of popped into my head. A minor's information with the age and the address, is that something that someone could obtain through a public records? Okay, I just want to make sure, because I kind of...
Part of the program that
Okay.
everybody has a password to.
I just wanted to
So-
make sure, because my first instinct was, wow, you're kind of giving away child, address and age and things like that.
Yeah, no, there's exemptions too
Okay.
for those things. So.
Good.
Any further questions? At this time, open it up for public comment. Hearing none on this agenda item, bring it back to council. Carrie, thank you very much.
Thank
I hope
you.
it works great for you.
Well, it's exciting.
It was a
Never
lot of
thought
work
I'd
for them.
actually-
It's a lot of work to
Yeah.
transfer an entire, all of their computer systems to a whole new system, and then add something like both credit cards and online registration. It was a lot of work, and they did a great job. It was seamless. They got it done before summer program started, so it's very exciting. And I remember when I first started in talking with you all, what you wanted. I don't think there was not one single one of you that didn't want online registration and credit card payments through the city, so they got it done, and they did a great job.
Carrie, how many programs are there in that summer district?
I'll count for you, Frank.
Thanks, Carrie, I knew you.
I don't know. There's a lot.
There is. It's
are a lot.
amazing.
We already have 3 camps full, and quite a few of them are already half full.
Great.
And we've been registering just since April 1st.
No. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Moving on to agenda number 9, discuss, take action on ordinance number 1091. Jim?
Ordinance number 1091, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, amending the FY 2013-2014 budget ordinance number 1077, providing an effective date. It's the first reading of ordinance number 1091.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 1091 on first reading.
I have a motion by Councilman Montanaro, a second by Vice Mayor Gott. This time, Courtney?
We have met with all of you individually, but we do have a brief presentation for the community, and just to make sure everybody understands what we're doing here and what we're recommending, so I'll pass it on to Andy.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Tonight, what you have before you is ordinance 1091, which is the mid-year budget amendment. This is presented in the same format we have the last several amendments and budget updates, so you should be fairly familiar with the format. So what I'll do is just kind of touch on the highlights thus far mid-year. We're 6 months into the fiscal year, which began October 1st of 2013. So the numbers you have before you are numbers as of February, so not quite mid-year, but we've known enough information at this point to go ahead and make some amendments and some adjustments mid-year. That way, when we're at year end, there's really no surprises, and we've got some time to make our adjustments. So what we do each year is we take the original budget and we go through, look at this point, where are we at this year, what's taken place, has there been any unexpected expenditures, has anything changed since we've drafted the budget? And there has been several, changes. Some are things we have to make adjustments on, and we do that through the budget amendment. And you'll see those numbers reflected in the mid-year budget amendment on the far right-hand column of your amendment. Page numbers really match up to the original budget, and I believe this was posted online as well. The general fund budget summary, basically, the budget amendment you have before you will bring your total revenues to $9,066,000, and your total expenditures the same thing. Budget has to be balanced, the general fund budget. Some of the general fund highlights that you'll see in the amendment presented. We did reduce the ad valorem budgeted revenues by $75,000. One reason we did this is in years past, it's really just been I don't know if I'd necessarily call it an error, but you have ad valorem taxes. We had two line items in the budget, one for ad valorem, which is our property taxes, and one for delinquent property taxes. It's basically the same thing. We just receive them at different times of the year. The ones that are paid on time, we receive in the first 3 months, and then once they become delinquent, there's a small penalty, and we receive a little bit of that penalty, but it's not it's not enough to be a huge amount. So we've combined that in the budget this year just to call it ad valorem taxes. What we've done is just taken the final assessed value for last year and multiplied it times your millage rate. So we got rid of all this delinquent, and we were really, I think, overstating the budget. Every year, from what I could see last several years, we'd come in and make this amendment for whatever reason. I just think it was because we budgeted these delinquent taxes and tried to split up, and really it's one revenue source. So the ad valorem taxes, we've reduced that to $75,000, really simplified how we're going to make that calculation from here on out. There was also a reduction in the insurance premium tax revenue of $163,000. This wasn't as a result of we collecting less. It's just how we're going to budget for the pension premium tax dollars we receive from the state for our 175, 185 monies is what we call them in the budget, and that helps to offset the cost of the police and fire pension plans. So instead of budgeting the revenue, because it is a pass-through, we take that money from the state we receive, and we give that directly to the Florida League of Cities, who manages our pension plan, and they invest the money. So the money is never actually deposited into the city's bank account. It's a pass-through, and then our cost is offset by that amount. So all we're going to do is budget the expenditures, the money that we're going to have to physically write a check to fund our police and fire pension plan. The electricity franchise fees, this was a budget number we had started out with. We've reduced it by about $59,000 as well. That could be a little less or a little more. This is, once again, just a budget number. Depends on the price of, the price of electricity, and has some other factors in there that you really cannot predict. So we used last year's budgeted number, how we finished last year. When we started the budget, we used the previous year's budget number. So what we want to do is just kind of be conservative when we do our mid-year, and we've budgeted what we actually received last year from those fees. So we've maybe slightly over budgeted that line item. Also, the stormwater transfer. This was an issue that several months ago we had looked at at the end of last year. The stormwater was we had the Cassia project that was not in last year's budget. Myself or Courtney didn't formulate that budget, but it was a project that should have been budgeted because the final payment hadn't. The project was completed, but the final payment hadn't been processed through, I believe it was a DOT project or a DEP project. So the final payment we had to pay of $447,000 at the end of last year, which was offset by a reimbursement, but not quite for the full amount of the expense. I believe it was a 60-40 match where we pay 40% and the state paid 60%. So once we received the revenue, there was an offset, but it did take the majority of the fund balance from the stormwater. So they're basically, we had in this year's budget to use some of that fund balance to help offset the cost of stormwater maintenance for the Public Works Department. So that transfer won't be able to take place this year. It's a good thing we know about it now. We've been able to go in, make the necessary adjustments to reduce on the expenditure side, to reduce some of the departments went through and reduce some of their expenses to make up that shortfall. So, moving forward, if there's a project that we know we've finished this year, but next year we still are going to make a payment, we'll need to put that in the budget. That way we don't spend what we don't have. So all the other revenues were basically remained on target. Those were the three major things. I'm pointing out the major things. The other things, there were some areas where revenues increased, but these are the things that just need to bring to the council's attention. Some of the expenditures, obviously, if you bring in less revenue, a little bit less revenue than we projected, we have to account for that on the expenditure side. That's why we always start with the revenues, because that tells us what we're able to spend for the year. There was a reduction in the other benefits line item across all departments, and really what the other benefits within each department, we charge workers' compensation for each department and their employees, and we received a significant workers' compensation rate decrease. So we were able to utilize some of those savings to reduce that in the budget, and you'll see where there was a reduction as far as the expense side in your mid-year budget amendment. The retirement contributions, as I said before, we're not going to budget the revenues, so we're going to only budget the expenditures, so it's basically a wash on paper. So that's why you'll see a reduction in the retirement contributions to police and fire. We still have to make the payment, as stated in the actuarial report, every year. So the expenditure you see in your budget now is the actual check the city will write to the police and fire pension plan. There was a reduction to the retiree insurance coverage, which after we adopted the budget, the city manager wanted us to go back and take a look at whether or not the retirees could stay on a Medicare supplement plan. The original quote in our budget, we were paying the same cost as a full-time employee for our retirees for health insurance. With the Medicare supplement plan, it reduced like the coverage, I think, by half. So we actually, after the budget was already implemented, we went back and met with the retirees, and they decided that they would like to stay on the Medicare supplement plan. They were actually able to stay with Health First at a very reduced cost to the city. So we actually budgeted a larger amount than what we actually needed. So we're making that adjustment mid-year. The departments all went through and reduced their operating budgets by some between 5 and 10%. So we all pitched in to try to. There was a small shortfall, mainly due to the stormwater fee transfer into the general fund to help offset the public works maintenance of stormwater. So we had to make up for that slight shortfall. The other funds, we have other funds other than the general fund. The community services fund is in line. The stormwater fund, we've had to make some adjustments on, and I've got a quick slide on that. The law enforcement trust fund, which is a fund that we receive forfeitures from the state, we try to keep that separately, and the police department is able to use those in accordance with state statute. And the community redevelopment trust fund is on target. The board has approved the amendment. And then the capital assets fund is in line as well. In the stormwater, basically what we've had over the past several years, we've been able to utilize some of the fund balance, and we've brought that money into the budget to balance the expenditures. However, that money is no longer there's no longer much of a fund balance, so we're operating what we bring in as what we can spend. In the stormwater fund, we bring in approximately $325,000 a year from our stormwater revenues, and of course our expenses are the same thing. But our debt service in that fund, due to just one project, the Soto project, the debt service in that fund is $311,000 per year. So when the city did do that project, and I believe it was after the storms and the contractors and the price went through the roof, so they did have to pay a little more for that project. There's not much more to do anything with in the stormwater fund because whatever we bring in from our stormwater taxes or a stormwater assessment is being spent right now in debt service. In several years, in 2 years, I believe we do pay off one of those, some of that debt service, so that will free up, I believe, maybe $125,000 to be utilized for other stormwater projects. But until the debt service is paid, we can only spend, like we do the general fund, what we bring in is what we can spend. And the fund balance at year end, which the audit will be, at our next meeting, you'll see that we'll have about $9,000 in fund balance. These funds, the smaller funds they don't consider them significant funds. So the major one is the general fund. So if you had a $9,000 fund balance in the general fund, you would be getting audit comments and things of that nature. But you'll see that our general fund balance has increased significantly, and so the city financially And that money can be spent for stormwater project, it can be spent for whatever the council desires, but stormwater must be spent for stormwater. So, not a major concern, but I think that the city manager has had some discussions on, where do we take stormwater from here, being that it is such a hot discussion and a hot topic. The summary, basically, city staff, we made the necessary adjustments to balance the budget. Changes are being implemented from basically past budgeting practices so we can better project revenues and expenditures. We don't want to wait to the year end and have a big surprise, so we bring all this out in the open to make the necessary adjustments at mid-year. Periodic review of the budget, we're looking at this every month, is key to provide a realistic financial projection, and we want to continue to build the city reserves. The general fund reduction to revenues is largely due to removing the 175, 185 monies from the budget. Those don't necessarily have to be in the budget. Basically, it was overstating the budget. But it's basically a wash on paper because we reduced the expense at the same time. So that's basically the budget amendment in a nutshell, the major points and highlights. Looking ahead, on your May 7th meeting, we'll have the audit will be presented to the city council, and that will encompass where we ended up last year. So once we get through this budget year, we'll have another audit, and you'll see where we've ended up this year. But hopefully, as a result of good budgeting practices and staying on top of some of these things that come up throughout the year, we'll continue to be able to build the city's reserves and continue to complete projects. So that's all I have this evening.
Andy, thank you very much. Comments from council?
Good job, Andy. I get the feeling that you really have a good handle on the budget, and I really appreciate that. I think you're doing an excellent job. Keep it up.
I have some questions. Courtney, I'm sure you've been in touch with the county. Any feeling on the first responder money, or if that's going to be cut from their budget? That's going to
Well, right now, yes,
there's future.
You read the news, and they all want to cut it from the budget. But right now, we have sent the resolution, and I covered that with a letter. And then we are in the next 2 weeks starting to meet with the county commissioners individually. So I'll be bringing the mayor or the vice mayor, whoever's available, as well as our fire chief, and sit down and talk to them about the issues with that. We do have a lot of issues with, maybe some, I wouldn't say unfair, but maybe unweighted and negatively towards us in terms of mutual aid. So we tend to take care of our neighboring areas a little bit more a lot more than they take care of us. So there's some things like that we need to talk about. Is it really fair to continue when we do this favor, to take funding away from us like that? So we'll have those conversations, and we'll keep you up to date on how those go.
Okay, well, I'm glad that's being worked on, because we were kind of blindsided by that last year. Andy, back to this, the shortfall and the departments making up the 5 and 10%. I really appreciate the departments doing that. But can you just go over some examples of where the departments have made up that shortfall?
Yeah, I can do that. Public Works, the fire department, you can look through some of their line items. Public Works specifically, we've, they were able to, they're doing their sidewalks, for instance. They're going to do some of those in-house where I think they outsourced some of that before. So their guys are going to try to do basically more with less, and that's just an example of the department head that stepped up to the plate. Let's see.
They reduce fuel costs.
Yeah, some of the fuel costs, they've reduced in this year's budget. The road materials, that's just for patching the roads and things of that nature. That's just in Public Works. Let's see. Wearing apparel was one that, the uniforms, T-shirts, and those types of things in the police and fire department. Sign maintenance was some that they thought they could, they went through and tried to trim a little bit on where they thought they could reduce without not necessarily affecting any type of service delivery. The police department, They looked at some of their part-time dispatchers. They didn't reduce it by a whole lot, but they thought they could maybe, his idea was maybe he could maybe work a little bit better there and maybe work, I don't know how he would do the scheduling, but schedule a little differently to reduce some of that. But there's just various different line items in the budget that they've reduced. Some of the equipment maintenance in the fire department would be reduced as a result of hopefully the new fire truck that they think they'll get before the end of the year. So those types of reductions, we went in and just fine-tuned the budget. So.
Okay, and then you talked a little bit about the debt service and the stormwater utility. And you said you think it'll be 2 years before there'll be money coming into that.
Yes.
Aside from paying down the debt service for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Of course, we could always increase the assessment. But go over the debt service for the capital asset fund.
Yes, next year, the big one in the capital assets fund, and that is a good point, is the Schechner Center. And that loan, I believe, there was a couple of things that they combined the loan together with the Schechner Center. And that debt service payment right now is $284,000. That will be eliminated next year. So that will free up $284,000 in the capital assets fund. That's how we're going to fund the fire truck of $50,000. The RMS system will be at its full cost, which is another, I believe, $80,000. So, but there'll still be an extra $100,000 to $125,000 on top of what we have freed up to continue to utilize those funds for additional improvements.
Okay, and then, of course, the CRA also has debt service and with the interlocal agreement. Can you go over the debt service and the CRA quickly? And then lastly, then, what is projected to be in reserve?
The reserve balance was, we lived close to $800,000 in the CRA, and the CRA board, I think the CRA board earmarked those for beach access improvements.
And A1A.
And A1A, so it was a combination of both. So in the debt service, I believe is what it is in the CRA. The CRA fund was the swap agreement, and that debt service payment is $494,000 a year, and that was for some purchase of, I wasn't here at the time, so.
Yeah, that was a refinance debt service. It included refinancing of past projects. So High Tower, Pelican Beach, property acquisition.
Okay. I think that's it for now, until we hear from the public.
Further comments from other council members? Okay. This time open up for public comment.
Roger Goodis, Satellite Beach resident. Good evening, council. Thank you for the report, ordinance 1091. I do have an issue with it. Although I couldn't make it on time for citizens' comments, I have an issue with amending, and here we go, but I'll leave that aside. I have a problem with mapping for citizens in this community who want to delve in a budget, and it would be greatly appreciated if staff could provide citizens in the agenda with a bridge between the ordinance and Exhibit A. It's rather confusing. I look at Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, Section 4, Section 5, Section 6. Bridging and mapping to coordinate, even if it's handwritten in, would be greatly appreciated. My second point is this netting principle. It's no secret I was in public accounting. I will say one thing about the netting process as far as how it's done with the fire fund and so forth and other things, that we tend to net to expenditures or we tend to net things through to revenues. It all becomes forgotten over years, and we fall in the calamity of realizing that we have made mistakes and depended on these nettings. And perhaps we are falling in the trap here, the illusion that since we are utilizing these funds from the state to meet our pension obligations, and perhaps we are using them to fund the current balance, but perhaps we are also shortfalling the payment that all the individuals working for the city deserve payment, and the future residents are not taxed about this. There's something to think about grossing it up and reflecting it transparently to ensure that it is there. Secondly, I look at the revenue generated from the transfer from the CRA to the general fund. It's roughly $306,000. What portion does that fund operations? Because I look at the 199 going to reserves. What portion does that CRA fund that is transferred to the general fund fund? And I can go through the gyration of numbers and back that out. And I don't want to do it right now because this is the only first reading. But does it violate the supposed interlocal agreement where the city would consider only 20% to be transferred to the general fund? Or do we need a special vote to take more money out and take it out of reserves? I believe we had something in the past that discussed that the majority of the monies from the CRA that were transferred over to the city would be utilized for building the reserve. And then I go, where's the money that is transferred to the CRA? And I look at that fund, and it's a net number again, and we forget. And I still have a question about the franchise fee. I may be mistaken, but I seem to recall, and I could be proven wrong over this, but I seem to recall $60,000 floating back and forth, back and forth. Some would say it related to the CRA electric portion for the allocation. Some would say it's something else. Just a little investigative work needs to be done on that. And if I'm proven wrong about the $60,000, so be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy, on the CRA, the money from the CRA.
Yeah, if you look at page 47 of your budget, we actually, to fund the reserve, you have to show it as an expense because you have to have a balanced budget. So when you say we're going to expend into the reserve, we're going to take the money, and that money is going to be put into the reserves at year end. And page 47 has that information, and it is exactly the amount of the CRA agreement, the surplus funds that will be returned to the city, and that amount is $199,755.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And you'll see also, Mr. Mayor, May 7th, you'll see where last year we put actually more into reserves than that CRA transfer back into the general fund for the excess funds. There was actually more the city put in. So along with that that transfer that was into the general fund from the CRA, and actually the general fund transfers more into the CRA as the ad valorem taxes and the repayment than what's coming back in right now to the general fund.
Thank you. Further public comments? Here are none. Close public comment portion. Back to City Council. Comments?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some of Lorraine's comments. Andy, you did a great job, you and Courtney, putting this together. This is why we received the budget award that we received as the city, because of the way that you conscientiously put this information together. It's a lot better a format than it's been in the past. And, I also want to thank you and the Finance Department for handling this, and I want to thank the other departments for stepping up when the deficiency was noted on the $400,000 that wasn't budgeted properly under the last management. Thank you.
Thank you. The question is really not on the It's on the agenda here. Stormwater and stormwater fund, we have that on as an agenda item.
Yeah, we were
I think we
actually,
really need to, stormwater is going to be a huge expense to us in the future, save the lagoon, and Glenwood trunk line is just going to be a major, major project the lines are 55, 60 years old that we need to make sure we're...
let me tell you what we're doing right now. We, the requirements that face us is bigger than us. So we are trying to meet with Brevard County and Indian Harbor Beach and in the Atlantic to see if there's ways for us to all partner together and try to reduce some of our costs. And even if it's just sharing personnel, like a stormwater manager or something like that. As you know, Mark Ryan is the new manager over at Indian Harbor Beach. We actually talked about that Monday night, and he was ecstatic about it because we're all worried about having to do all this on our own. So we would like to meet with everyone and start coming up with some strategies, and then we need to come up with a scope of services to get a stormwater plan, kind of like a layout on how we're going to deal with this, how much it's going to cost, and how we're going to fund it. So that we'll bring that back to you when we have some good recommendations and kind of a handle on what everyone else is doing and how we can get some good, bullet list of recommendations on how we can move forward.
Thank you very much. Other comments?
I have some additional questions. Andy, there was a comment made about the $400,000 that wasn't budgeted properly by the former management. Our audit is not out yet, so we haven't had a chance to look at the actual financials. But can you get into that? What wasn't budgeted properly that was just mentioned?
Well, in the 12-13 budget, there was nothing, the Cassia project, there was nothing budgeted in that year.
And that was about $100,000?
It's 100, I believe, we've made a payment of $444,000. The city was reimbursed, I believe, 40% of that. So there was, I think, close to $195,000 basically difference in budgetarily. So that 195 had to be brought in from the stormwater last year to offset that expense.
Okay, so that's not $400,000. And then you and I talked.
The
You were
total-
saying the total payment was $400,000.
Yeah.
And you talked about the grant, and he gave the match, so the match was $195,000.
The total
We had to
expense was
pay.
$440, and then the revenue, the reimbursement was 60% of that, and the city paid the other 40%. So 40% of $444,000. So,
Okay.
which is around.
And then
170.
of course, the audit isn't out, but it's my understanding that the amount of money that went into reserves under the former management is pretty decent, correct? Can you disclose that information?
Yeah, I don't know the exact amount. There was more money put into reserves than just the CRA.
When you say former management, what are you talking about?
Last year's budget, the audit that's going to be coming out.
The audit that's coming out covered last year's expenses, so the council and the management that was here during that year is responsible for how it was expended in the reserves that we received. This council and this management is responsible for those reserves.
I just want to clarify this this issue regarding, everything seems to get blamed on the former council and the former management.
Nobody here blamed the former council.
Let's specifically go over what's in reserves at this time. What's in our reserves?
I don't have the exact amount in front of me. I did kind of go over each of it with each of the council members. But if the auditor will have those final numbers, and then they'll be able to explain that. Any of those questions to do with the reserves, the financials, anything.
Okay. And then just one question, and you might have to get back to me. The 20% of the CRA, I think that's a Florida Statute 163 issue for operating expenses. I know there's $108,000.
It's actually not a statutory requirement. It's actually a requirement in our ordinance in agreement with the Brevard County when we created the CRA, and it's 25%.
25%.
So that's for administrative fees. The transfer to general fund is actually done under a statutory provision, which is paying back to taxing authorities for excess funds at the end of the year.
Okay, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from council? Hearing none, Lenore?
Councilmember Brimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dean?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gott?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you very much. Andy, thank you. The hard work, I tell you.
All right, thank you.
Really easy to read. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Pass it on.
Moving on to agenda item number 10, discuss, take action on resolution 947.
Resolution number 947, a resolution of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, authorizing the lease purchase of certain property through execution of a master equipment lease purchase agreement with Municipal Leasing Consultants, LLC, making and agreeing to the covenants and agreements in connection therewith, authorizing city manager and appropriate city officials to execute a lease purchase agreement and ancillary documents, providing an effective date. So reading of resolution number 947.
Thank you very much.
Move to adopt Resolution 947.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Gott, second by Councilman Montanaro to adopt Resolution 947. Council comments, questions?
I just want to make a quick comment. There's, between what's in the packet and what is at the council's desk this evening, there were two nits and one change that was made to the document. On page 7 of the of the lease purchase agreement.
The old one or the new?
No, well, you can look at the old one and I'll tell you what got changed. It's section 7.5. What happened was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Starting near the end of the 5th line and at the beginning of the 6th line, there's a sentence that says, lessee shall notify lessor which course of action will take within 15 days. That sentence is been stricken because it's a duplicate. It also appears further down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Near the end of the 7th sentence from the bottom, the same sentence is there. They didn't delete the first one when they put the second, when they moved it. And also the word with is supposed to be within 15 days. And then the only substantive change is on page 9, section 12.3. The third line down that says 10 days, they agreed to change that to 30 days. And those are the only differences from the legal perspective, or the legal issues from what's in your packet and what's at the dais this evening.
Thank you very much. Again, questions from council? So Courtney, I have one question on it, quick. So this is a lease purchase, so basically what we did is we traded points for interest. We traded the payoff. We can't pay it early.
Right.
On
Just like any
this
lease, yes.
Right,
It's
okay.
not a loan, it's a lease.
Right, okay.
It's
Question?
got a great interest rate, and if we need to, and we apologize for passing this out, but we're negotiating between the leasing company, our attorney, their attorney, and then us, and if we postpone, every time we postpone it, the interest rates change. We really need to approve it tonight, and normally we wouldn't pass something out like this and expect you to approve it, but you did approve the interest rate, you approved the amount that we were taking out. Our attorney has thoroughly vetted it, trust me. And so what we've entered, a lot of what we entered into this evening is just literally the math, so.
Thank you very much. Hearing no further comments from council, open up for public hearing.
Ron Dragutis, resident Satellite Beach. Are the changes that are passed on the dais for council, have they been put into the revised packet for citizens?
I do not believe we've done that yet.
Is there anything else missing in this lease agreement, perhaps for analysis for council and for citizens to determine what the trade-off is between points versus this agreement going forward? In other words, a cost-benefit analysis.
The interest rate it's a 10-year lease purchase, and the interest rate is 2.71%.
That's correct.
That's over 10 years. The payments are $42,000 a year for 10 years.
Okay, versus a non-lease agreement.
The 4 leases the city has, I believe one's at 6.5% interest, and there's 2 more at 5.5%, and another one at 6.9%. This is 2.71%, and we competitively bid this company for the financing.
Is this a capitalized lease where the equipment goes back to the city for $1 after all said and done?
No, we own it.
That's what I'm asking. So at the end of the lease, you own it?
Yes, sir.
And you've run the amortization tables for present value comparing the lease agreement versus a straight amortization table for a loan, correct? That can be answered later. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any further public comment? Hearing none, close it. Back to council. Any further comments from council? Hearing none, Lenore?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Medina?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gott?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you very much, staff. Chip, moving on to agenda item 11, discuss, take action on resolution 949. Jim?
Resolution number 949, a resolution of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, establishing home rule support for the regulation of single-use shopping bags, providing an effective date, and providing for adoption. So reading of resolution number 949.
Thank you. At this time, we have a presenter on this agenda item who actually brought it to Courtney to be on our agenda, and Mike Daniels from the Surf Foundation. Mike, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it very much. Beautiful city of Satellite Beach. I did provide a copy of the bill that was in the Florida legislature, Senate Bill 830. Did everyone get a chance to see that and to see that there was also the DEP report that was prepared in 2010 about this matter? And as I said, as Mayor said, I do represent Surfrider Foundation, which is a conservation nonprofit that is an international organization. We have about 250,000 members worldwide and about 700 in the chapter that I represent here in South Brevard County. The bill did not get out of committee last week, but it will be refiled. And these resolutions of support are still very useful in finding sponsors and in general in finding support among legislatures for this type of action. The state currently has a preemption to home rule in effect on this the matter. The bill, Senate Bill 830, would have returned home rule on this and provided a uniform ordinance. The city manager, Barker, had a question about that as to why that language was in the bill. That was a compromise position in order to get support, because there are members of the legislature that feared that there would be, if you just open it up to home rule, that there would be different regulations in different areas, widely divergent, and it would be difficult for large businesses to be able to comply. So that was a way of making it more doable, basically. The uniform ordinance, like I said, is a compromise, but it only affects large retailers. If you look at the bill, it is 10,000 square feet or $2 million in revenue. So it does opt out all the small, tiny businesses that they would not be affected by this bill. Excuse me. Before the preemption, in 2011, many communities in Florida were considering regulating these bags. There are widespread regulations around the world. China, for instance, these bags are outlawed in China. It is being outlawed or regulated in a lot of areas. The DEP report that I provided to you is a very good, it's only 21 pages, without the appendices and everything. It's a good overview, very fair. In fact, there's some things in there that we don't particularly like, but it explains the current preemption situation and also outlines what the Florida DEP, as of 2010, considered prudent action. The history of the bags that we're talking about are the single-use carry-out bag, what's commonly called a T-shirt bag. Has the two handles on it. This doesn't apply to newspaper bags or produce bags, things like that. These bags were invented in 1976, and they have become one of the most common, consumer items. They're everywhere. And there are over 100 billion of them per year used worldwide, with very, very meager recycling. They're very difficult to recycle, and in spite of any efforts, the recycling percentages are dismal, less than 10%. What they do is they become debris, marine debris primarily, because they are so easily airborne, and everything ends up in the ocean or in our lagoon. And marine debris is a huge problem. You've probably all heard about the huge garbage patches that are in our oceans and stuff, and these are a large part of that. They directly kill sea turtles. Sea turtles mistake them, loggerheads mistake them for their primary food, jellyfish. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. They clog storm drains. You might talk to your public works people and see how many times they have clogged storm drains that are partially or a major contributor to it. They jam up recycling equipment when they do get into recycling, or when they're mistakenly, most recycling facilities don't take them for that reason. And although some retailers are making efforts, as long as the bags are available, some careless people, or accidentally, they get out of your, they get away from you, or they go to the landfill and they'll blow away. At landfills, there's frequently a blizzard of these bags because they're so easily airborne, and they end up in our marine environment one way or another. The solution is to get rid of these things. They are, like I said, a relatively new thing. I don't think life would go on without them. More and more people are employing reusable bags. A strong educational campaign that would go along with anything that we do can help to do that. Retailers can sell these bags, the reusable bags, at a profit, or use them as a branding opportunity. There are a lot of businesses that are trying to do that. There was a resolution passed in the city of Melbourne Beach in support of Senate Bill 830. We'd like to get you guys to do the same. This county is so important to the sea turtle population. Some of you may know this, but the Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge at the south end of this county is home to 25 to 35%, it varies year to year, but 25 to 35% of all the loggerhead and green turtle nests in the United States. Okay? And if you add in the rest of Brevard County to that, and we're 40% of those, at least. That's a conservative number. 40% at least are of the nest in the whole United States is in Brevard County. So we have a very strong connection, to these animals. And as I said, the loggerhead's primary food is jellyfish, and if you've seen these bags in the water, you know what they look like, and they're easily mistaken. There's a great picture that our friends at the Sea Turtle Conservancy, that's the wrong picture. We'll get there in a second. This is a good distance to show it to you from, too, because I think you can all read that. And also, you can't read it, man? Okay, sure. You see what's going on there?
Pardon?
Do you see what's going on there? Okay. I'll show the members of the audience, this is, it says, you see the difference, the turtle does not. Those are the plastic bags suspended in the water next to it.
Is there a website that we can go to get?
Ma'am, excuse me.
That's Sea Turtle Conservancy.
I'm going to open up for public comment.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be addressing probably my bad. I wanted to let them see the picture so they didn't feel left out. But this is, in other words, this county is so important to sea turtles. If we can't take a stand here and support efforts to get rid of these bags, I'm not sure, who can. So this is about home rule, and it's about saving the lives of sea turtles. And that's it in a nutshell. I've got the copy of the bill here, and a copy of the resolution that the town of Melbourne Beach. I believe that I provided this to you electronically also, but if any of you want to have that. But any questions?
Questions from council tonight?
In the version of this bill that I have, I don't see anything in here about small businesses being exempt.
Well, it says that it affects businesses that are 10,000 square feet or $2 million in revenue.
And what were you saying about, I didn't follow what you were saying about keeping different localities from having different ordinances?
If the state just purely removed the preemption on local communities regulating bags, then, for instance, this city might adopt a resolution that said that there's a 50-cent fee on paper bags, or there's and somebody else, another, Indian Harbor Beach might write a different ordinance. And that's what they're trying to avoid. They want to have, especially since it affects the big, the larger retailers, the larger retailers would like to have a uniform ordinance. So what this bill would do would be, and that's the reason that language is in there, is that it would create a uniform ordinance that communities could opt into. In other words, you would not be able to write your own legislation or ordinance, local ordinance about this, but you would be able to opt into this ordinance that is the language that is provided in this bill. Does that make it more clear for you? Thank you.
And not every municipality or local government would have to.
Oh, no. It doesn't do anything but return home rule and allow you, and have a language that would be, you would be able to opt into.
Mike, I'm very much in favor of the concept of what you're doing. Without seeing what that uniform ordinance is, though,
It's in that, the language is in the bill.
Yeah, but that was last year's bill. We don't know that next year's bill is going to be the same language. It didn't pass this year.
No, but it will be very similar. That's what you're doing is as I said, I've been assured that these resolutions still have a lot of value in getting the support that's necessary to get this thing. So it's a chicken or the egg kind of thing.
Well, let me ask you this.
If I don't have local communities that support it.
If we approve a resolution that is basically looking for a uniform ordinance, we're not necessarily approving the language because we don't know what the language is.
Well,
You say it may be the same.
Yeah, you
and
can
I'm
look at-
hoping it will be the same.
Yes, sir.
But we don't know that.
Well, you can
So,
look at what Melbourne
would
Beach
you-
did.
I guess my question would be to Courtney or Jim, if we approve a resolution that's basically a blanket resolution, and something happens in the the bill is exactly not the same,
Well,
then where are we?
the resolution that you have in front of you doesn't call out this bill number or anything.
Saying-
It basically says that you support the state legislature's action to allow local municipalities in the state of Florida to regulate their own local communities in the use of single-use shopping bags, and therefore the city of Satellite Beach opposes any statewide preemption on local efforts to determine the best course of action with regards to protection of the local environment and tourism economy. So that's what you're doing, is you're saying you want to get rid of the preemption, but if, for example, they come back with some, language that we don't like, that's something that we can address
Yeah,
at
but
that time.
if the ordinance, though, is uniform enough that it doesn't allow us to,
I think
do
if we were, basically what they're saying is that the state legislature did that preemption because they were afraid that a bunch of cities were going to
Have
adopt
different
different ordinances
rules.
and drive publics crazy, And what Surfrider Foundation is trying to do is they said, okay, well, if we get rid of the preemption, because obviously the state's not going to do this anytime soon, it appears, let's get rid of the preemption, and in the legislation, create a uniform standard that if the local government opts in, they have to comply with. So it's like, it gets rid of the home rule issue, because it allows us to regulate these shopping bags, but it basically provides a statewide standard. So it's not unlike growth management legislation, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's very similar to that.
I just wanted to clarify that we're going to be able to
So
do
what
what we need to
I
do.
totally understand your question. I get it, but I guess if you want to look at it in terms of what you're committing yourself to, you don't have to opt in. If you don't like the language that's in it, if what they do next year, you don't have to opt in. That'd be my quickest.
This is similar to
easiest.
the flood insurance thing then. And if we wanted to opt in, we've got to opt in to
That
say
standard, yes.
we can't make our own, basically is what
And
we're
that's
doing.
the
But it
only-
doesn't mean we have to adopt that.
And I think so they're kind of on the right track to do that, because I don't see the state ever just saying, okay, everybody gets to do whatever they want. Because there's a lot of lobbyists from the grocers and those people that,
Yeah, I just think of
retail.
everybody here, where you shop, you might shop at the Publix at Satellite Beach, and then you go to Indian Harbor, and it's totally different.
Right.
That would be,
Be
not
hard on
very
our
convenient.
businesses, yeah.
Yeah. Jim?
I mean, another way to look at this resolution, all this resolution is a policy statement by the city to say, we want you out of our hair, so to speak. We don't want to be preempted. And that's all this resolution says. And if it's anything, anything short of total elimination of the preemption, that's when you start dealing with what the legislature ultimately does. But this is just a policy statement by the city and any other cities that they get that says, we don't want you to preempt this anymore. And that's where he's saying he can have that in his pocket to say, we want to be able to local governments want to be able to regulate this somehow. And along the lines he's talking about is Brevard County's a unique situation on top of everything else because of the number of nests that are here.
Okay. Other questions from council?
Yeah, I think the big issue really, and I circled it, is the preemption. So that's what the issue is.
It is. It is a home rule thing.
And a home
It
rule
really is a home rule
issue.
thing.
And then
yeah.
just a really stupid question, what in the world is a produce bag?
The produce bags that's the different, the ones that you put your produce in, they're more like a newspaper bag.
the clear.
Oh, I
They're
got it.
clear,
I
the
got it.
ones
I'm
that they
sorry, I didn't
pull them out of a little thing in public.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes there's confusion that we're trying to take away, all plastics or something. And although all plastics, I'm using a reusable plastic water bottle. So I'm not against all plastics. I'm against marine debris. I don't think it should end up in our oceans, and it's a big problem. There's a lot more data that I can give you, but I guess I'm trying to make this simple, and it's late at night, so we don't want to.
I think it is pretty simple. I think it just got convoluted with the bill attached and
I agree, and I wanted to try to explain it. I think your city attorney just did a much better job than I did, and I appreciate that very much.
Mike, I'm going to open it up for public comment this time. As being the presenter, because there might be some questions directed to you, if you wouldn't mind, please, sitting over here at the other mic.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This time, I'd like to open up for public comment on this agenda item, number 11, Resolution 949.
Roger Gudis, resident, Satellite Beach. This is a bill proposed by a senator named Mr. Bullard. I don't know where the $2 million number came from, whether it's arbitrary or real, but in this day and age, a $2 million business is a small business. A $3 million business is a small business. A $4 million business is a small business. I understand there's an issue with bags, plastic bags. I see the dramatization of it. I'm trying to figure out why the state of Illinois and Chicago is dealing with bags in the various suburbs, and it's not about the marine issue, but that's neither here nor there. Perhaps efforts should be taken to promote bags going forward in the industry to fund research and development like what is happening in other areas, for instance, where restaurants and other facilities out west are using disintegrating bags, disintegrating containers. Perhaps we should be doing that. And then it's also tied to the school tax. A portion of it would go to the school tax, if I read it correctly. That's fine. I could see that. Regulation on a business, there's going to be issues. I just worry about the fact that we haven't addressed the container issue in regards to canned products that come with plastic ties across.
On bags, this is on, not cans and so forth, so it needs to be directed to this agenda item, 949, which has to do with
I am directing it to that issue, because that is an issue that envelops this, that has not passed. Perhaps that could be an added item to this issue going forward to help and aid what is going on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate it very much. Any further public comment?
Dale Abrams, resident. Happy Easter and happy Passover to everyone. Question for you, sir. Yes, ma'am. Does this affect poop bags? Doggy bags, dog poop bags that we have in our community that people use? What type of plastic is that made out of?
This affects, like I said, what's known as the T-shirt bag, the retail bag. It's described in the bill.
Is this the same bag that they use at Publix?
Yes.
Okay.
When you get, the ones with the two handles.
Yes.
Those are not the ones that, I don't think those are the ones that you're using in the,
For doggy waste?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the bags that we get at Publix, are those recycled bags? And when I use those, I put them in my recycle bin, that Waste Management takes?
They don't take the T-shirt bags. You can return them to Publix. Publix does an admirable job of trying to recycle them. However, I think if you go and check where, they have those bins out there that you put them in and stuff, they don't all make it actually to recycling. But
Okay, so
Publix has made some admirable efforts, as have some other large businesses, and it's all part of an effort to reduce the use of these bags wherever possible.
So Publix, Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, they use bags that you're talking about.
Most of those companies are making efforts to reduce their usage of them.
I guess I was always under the impression that these bags were recycled and then they were reusing them again. So I guess I'm wrong on that.
Less than 10%.
Excuse me?
The recycle rate on these bags is less than 10%.
Less than-
Well documented if you want to look at
Okay, all right. So there are biodegradable bags.
There are photodegradable plastics, but they don't always work very well as far as actually degrading.
Okay. Next question is the bags that are made out of some type of a fiber that people use that they pay for? Are those bags, let's just say it outwears its life, are those bags recyclable?
Reusable bags?
Yes.
Some of them are, yes.
Okay.
Most of them can be, I'm not sure I understand.
Well, let's just say I had one of those Publix bags, and I think they're made out of fiber, some type of fiber, okay? And I used it so much that it started falling apart. Can I take that bag and put it in my waste management recycling bin, and then they could do...
Ma'am,
No?
that's not part of the
Okay.
issue. Thank you very much. Any further public comment? Hear none, close the public comment. Back to council.
I'll make a motion to,
Yes.
I think the cause is noble, but I think the execution here is very flawed. I'm not in favor of this resolution. I would not want to do anything to encourage the Florida legislature to pass a bill that has such extreme regulatory overreaching. The minutia, the detail in this thing about what you can and cannot do and what bags must consist of, I frankly have never seen anything quite like this. And I know that we're saying that this resolution is just to protect homeroom powers, but I think it's really using the home rule issue as the guise to start to get rid of these bags. And we're talking about this will only apply to the large retail outlets, not the small businesses. Then that's not going to solve the problem. It's going to result in a reduction of these bags, but it's not going to eliminate them. So the problem is going to continue. And I know that this thing is not adopting, it's not the city adopting this legislation that didn't even make it out of committee in Tallahassee, but the whole tenor of this legislation is antithetical to the efforts that we are trying to make it easier for businesses to do business in Satellite Beach. And when you have these, and by the way, personally, I think that anybody who thinks that legislation like this is ever going to make it through a Republican legislature in Tallahassee is dreaming, because of the extensive overreaching in the regulation. If we look at the big stores, the grocery stores and all, if you take these bags away from people with disabilities, mobility issues and that sort of thing, you're working a real hardship on them. And those sorts of things are not considered in this. For those who are careless with their bags and don't dispose of them properly and so forth. This legislation would punish the many for the transgressions of the few and would terribly inconvenience people, including those who actually need to use those bags to go shopping. And if this should pass and every locality, every municipal government can opt in or opt out, if the city in the future opted out, you can bet that Satellite Beach residents are going to go to other nearby localities that don't have this regulation in place. In other words, we would be harming our businesses. One of the things in here is a reporting requirement, that the stores must report to the city on a quarterly basis about the total amount of fees they collected for providing recycled bags, a summary of any effort by the store to promote customer use of the reusable bags, and they'll do it on a form prescribed by the local government. I can't believe that, quite frankly. And the last thing that Satellite Beach or any municipality needs to get involved in is requiring stores to do quarterly reports to them. And then what do? Add more staff so that we can have somebody monitoring the reports coming in? And anybody who thinks that those who like to spread false stories about this city wouldn't latch onto this and start the rumor in this city already that the city is going to outlaw plastic bags from stores in this city, you're kidding yourselves. We would be opening the door to more rumors, more silliness, more nonsense.
Any further?
So, my bottom line. I am definitely opposed to this resolution because I think it opens the door and to encourage the Florida legislature to pass legislation that would be harmful to us.
Further comment?
Well, I'm gonna say that I understand what Councilwoman Gott is saying, and I also look at the reporting aspect of this, and this is why I asked the questions that I asked going in, because this didn't make it through the legislature this year, because I think some of the things that you bring up are issues that they looked at and probably considered. But I can tell you that from my position with Anglers for Conservation, we go around and we clean up areas, and we clean up around the lagoon house, and these bags are all over that retention area out in front of there because they blow across US 1. I think the intent of what the resolution is asking is that we do something to address plastic bags. And I don't know whether the language that's in this bill is the correct language, and that's why I asked the question I did, because I don't think this is the right language. But I think there is something that is right about asking for these to be addressed. I shop with reusable bags. They're extremely easy to use if you have the right bags, and the right bags are out there. In some cases, they're free at places. In some cases, you have to buy them. But I think long-term, what this is asking people to do is to stop pollution. I recycle my bags at Publix, and I see the bags. They fly away. Some people just kind of stick them in there. They don't go in all the way. These bags don't belong in the waste management recycling. It says it right on the cart. You're not supposed to put them in there, and this is the same issues that you say when they jam up in recyclings. There are certain things that go in recycling, and there are certain things that don't. There are specific areas where you recycle these things. So I would be in favor of us passing a resolution that addresses the inherent issues that these bags cause in the environment.
Other comment?
You know, I have to agree with you, Dom. We got to do something with the bags. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I mean, we use the reusable bags when we go into Publix or whatever, and every time I walk into Home Depot or Lowe's, I'm handed those other bags to use. Some of the restrictions that are in this are just a little bit much, but I do want to see the bags go away, but I don't know exactly how to do that, and that's my concern. So, I mean, I'm supporting what you're saying about getting rid of the bags. I just don't know if something like this would be the way to really go. That's all.
You know, I batted this around because I think at first glance, you look at the bill, and there are definitely some issues with the bill, but it's not there yet. It needs a lot of massaging. And kind of to me, and I stepped back and looked at it, it's really about the enabling, the preemption on the local governments. And I support the ordinance. We're not that far yet. We supported the fertilizer ordinance and actually went even further beyond the statewide requirements for fertilization in this community. The lagoon is important. Times are changing. Things are changing, and it's amazing when you see the people out there with their reusable bags and the efforts they're making to protect the environment and to be environmentally friendly. And at first I was real bewildered, like, wow, this is really extreme and intense, but it's not about the bill. It's about the statewide preemption on the local government, and I support the ordinance, or the resolution, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Not the ordinance, because we're not that far yet. We haven't even gotten that far yet. So I apologize, the resolution.
Well, I can tell you, I have seen a lot of them in the water. When you run over them, it's about a $3,000 operation to get the engine fixed when it gets
It's
sucked
more than
up
that.
to your boat. I can't see a place doing harm business-wise to them, because if you ever really take a good look at these bags, you put a lot of groceries, the handles tear, they're really not that good a quality of an item to carry food around in. And if you go to Publix, because basically that's the type of store that we're talking about in our area, they have these cloth bags you can get that are recyclable. I know my wife brings them every time she goes shopping and fills them. So I have a hard time believing that because the plastic is going to be hopefully discontinued, that we're going to put them out of business. I just think times are changing. California and areas of that nature, they don't have them. And so my feeling is, do we really, this ordinance or resolution right here, do we want to create our own that supports getting rid of the bags, and we need to come back and not vote on this at all tonight? Take a step back, Mike, so we can go to Publix, do some research, get our own resolution that is not as deep as this, but Mike could have to say, hey, we support trying to get these bags out so that our environment is better. I can tell you from being in boats in the ocean and look at the shoreline, it is absolutely a problem. They are all over the place. And plastic, there's a great book about the Pacific Ocean, the Dead Sea. A friend of mine, Yvonne Chenard, gave it to me to read. And plastics does not break down the way you think they break down when you don't see anymore. They break down to their beginning stages, which are little tiny pellets, and they never really go away. And light does not go through them. They're refracted, and algae doesn't grow, and it's a huge issue. So I understand everybody's issue that, we don't want things taken away, but I sure would like to support this as an environmental issue, and maybe we just need to have it reworded and come back at another meeting.
So what are you suggesting, that we work with Mike, or?
Well, yeah, I say Courtney, let the staff write so that it's more towards the bag issue only.
Because I do want to support this.
I do
based
too.
on everything you said, and I think if we can come up with that goes in the direction.
My only comment would be that we will, at some point, we're going to have to overturn the preemption. We have to return to home rule, so you have to do something to enable that. But I'm certain that we have to be glad to work with that, with what Councilman Weimer is proposing.
This resolution itself, I'm not real sure if there's anything we would change to that, because it's so broad. If you're interested in making a statement on the preemption, this would be a resolution to look at. We could make a motion for a resolution approval and then include a direction to staff to assist Surfrider Foundation in reviewing their bill, because I think a lot of us have some issues with the bill, and put our 2 cents into what would make it a better bill. Because I think, and then, have our conversations with our local retailers to give some input to them. Because I think, Councilwoman Gotts brought up some good points, and I think a lot of people, when they looked at this, went, wow, is there a way we can slim this down and make it less intimidating? And we can maybe participate in that, and provide those recommendations to them for their next round of legislation.
Yeah, the wow factor really, for me, and I didn't have the opportunity to call and ask questions because I've been traveling so much, but I think this is simply an effort to return the right to regulate disposable bags by the local governments, not an actual bag ordinance. So once I looked at that, this is really going to go through probably some changes, and there's going to be a lot of compromise.
There already was.
Yeah.
That's the reason that language is in there.
Right.
And it put me off too when I first looked at it. I'm like, well, why is all this in here? But it's necessary to get, you understand, you're in government, you understand the art of compromise, I'm sure, quite well. I mean, that's what you have to do to get things done.
Hey, council wishes.
The city manager suggested passing the resolution and then adding the rest of it about working to, on the state legislation. I don't want both of those in one motion. I am opposed to this resolution. I would be in favor of pursuing efforts to make a workable bill for the legislature. So those two things, I would like them not to be combined.
Okay.
So you're not in favor of the resolution as it sits, or you're not in favor of the language of the bill that accompanied this resolution?
I'm not in favor of this resolution. I'm also not in favor of the bill, and the reason that I'm not in favor of this resolution is for some reason that you touched upon, and that is I don't know what this state legislature is going to be coming up with, and I want to see that before I vote for any resolution that says I support it.
The resolution supports the end of the
You need to talk into that microphone, sir.
The resolution supports the end of the preemption.
I understand that. Believe me, I understand it. I don't like it.
Well, you don't like returning home rule?
I do like home rule. I'm not voting for this resolution.
Well, I understand that, but I'd like for you to clarify a little bit. The
Absolutely.
resolution does not obligate you to...
I understand that, sir, and I think that I've been pretty articulate in my feelings about this. So let's move on.
Yes, ma'am.
So basically what you're saying, if you came back with language, it would pretty much be this resolution.
Yes.
And then, because what I'm saying is basically the same thing that Lorraine is saying as far as the bill goes. I don't like the language in the bill. To me, it's very complicated. I like the idea of what the resolution is looking to do, in number one, removing the preemption, and in number two, eventually getting rid of the bags. I guess my question is, does this resolution and passing this resolution start us on that process?
You could make a motion saying that you don't support the bill as written and include that with the approval of the resolution. You support a preemption, or you support getting rid of the preemption, but at the same time, you're not supportive of their current bill, or you name it Senate Bill 830, 2014, because of the breadth of the language, and make that statement to them so they understand that.
So moved.
No, and I ask again that these not be joined, because one of these I'm opposed to, and the other part of it I'm...
So you can just make two separate motions on that.
We have a motion. I need a second.
I'll make a motion that we as a council do not support the language in Senate Bill 830.
A motion by Councilwoman Montanaro. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Breimer. Discussion. Hearing none. Lenore.
Councilwoman Dean?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gott?
Yes.
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino.
Yes, motion carries.
And based on the fact that I don't support the language in that Senate bill, I do support a resolution that will remove the preemption that exists and also addresses the ability of us to remove those bags from the environment. And if Resolution 949 does that, I'll make a motion to approve it.
So your motion is to approve Resolution 949. Is that a correct statement?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilman Montanaro, second by Councilwoman Deanan. Further discussion?
No.
Lenore?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gott?
No.
Councilwoman Dean?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 12, agenda items for the next regular meeting. Excuse me. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 12, items for next regular meeting. Courtney?
Thank you, Mayor. We will be giving you an audit presentation for the fiscal year 12-13 year. We will be looking at the month of May as Civility Month, and we will be having a second reading on the budget ordinance you approved on first reading this evening. We will also be starting the site plan approval process ordinances that will allow us to be SNAP certified. That you'll see that on first reading. We will have a football field item to talk about how we're going to, hopefully we'll have a contractor, and so we'll have that estimate on your agenda. And then we will also be adding the restated interlocal agreement to create the Space Coast TPO, so that'll be on your agenda as well.
Okay. Thank you. Any other additional items that you'd like, please contact?
Can I try to, can I?
We finish. Please contact Courtney on additional items. Okay, Councilwoman Dean?
I would like to see if we can do some kind of proclamation. Mike kind of got me going here regarding Earth Day.
Oh, good.
Okay. Yeah, just bring it to her, no problem. Thank you. Further agenda items? Please, the talking from the back, I don't appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 13, adoption of minutes, the April 2nd, 2014 regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 2nd, 2014 meeting as written.
I have a motion by Councilman Montanaro. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Gott. Further discussion? Hearing none. Lenore?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dean?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gott?
Yes.
Councilman Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino.
Yes, motion carries. This time, any further business before council? Yes, I have one from Vice Mayor Gott.
When Councilwoman Dean delayed providing the anonymous letter that I requested 2.5 months ago, it prompted someone to obtain the documents themselves. And I have been given a set of documents from JLAC that left me stunned. I had no idea all of this was going on. And all I can say, Councilwoman Deanan, is that I can see why you were confused about which anonymous letter, because you actually have in your possession 3 anonymous letters that were sent to JLAC. And here's an email passing them on to JLAC, and also providing JLAC with some of the shoddy work and preliminary numbers done by Scott Ellis's team in that discredited audit that he did of our city. I have a copy of the 3 anonymous letters. Each one is crazier and more dishonest than the preceding one. One went to the JLAC staff, and it was signed "Concerned Taxpayers of Satellite Beach, Brevard County." One went to the legislative aide to the vice chair of JLAC, and that's from the City of Satellite Beach CRA, very concerned, all caps, residents. And the third one was sent to Senator Abruzzo, who is the chairman of JLAC. And just so that you have the perspective, audits by the Auditor General cannot be performed unless they go through and are recommended by JLAC. So that JLAC is the gate. One of the things that the JLAC staff did, they did a chronology of what they call their long history with the City of Satellite Beach. It's 5 pages long. It's stunning. In it, it details all of the contacts that Councilwoman Deanan had by phone and by email with JLAC that went on for 2 years. It also mentions Scott Rhodes' input and Lloyd French's contacts with JLAC. Scott Rhodes was even going to JLAC for legal questions, which were bounced back to him since his concerns are legal issues and outside the area of JLAC staff's expertise. In this recitation of JLAC's contacts with these folks from our city, it shows the many ways in which Ms. Deanan was going behind the back not only of this council, but of the council that she led, providing them with documents, draft letters, and in newspaper articles, anything that she basically could get her hands on to discredit the city. And time and again, she requested an audit by the Auditor General, the City of Satellite Beach. She even sent them Scott Ellis's letter to the city, informing us that he wanted to look at our numbers. In other words, she kept them informed of everything about this city, even things that were not finished and even things that were just downright flaky, such as the information from Mr. Ellis's staff. After 2 years, JLAC apparently finally decided to do something and put this to bed once and for all. And one of the anonymous letters, I guess feeling that fawning might help his cause, whoever wrote this, to Senator Abruzzo, who is the JLAC chair. He opened his letter with these words: "I understand you are a man of integrity and have a special place in your heart fighting government corruption. It is for those reasons I am writing you. Your efforts regarding the inappropriate spending of taxpayer funds with regard to community redevelopment agencies are outstanding. We need your assistance in Satellite Beach, Brevard County." So the JLAC staff wrote a letter to, or sent an email to Senator Abruzzo, making the recommendation. And the JLAC staff said this, addressed to Chair Abruzzo and Vice Chair Ray. "In response to your recent communication you have had from City Councilwoman Cheryl Deanan and concerned citizens of the City of Satellite Beach, we are providing you with a summary of our 2-year history with the city. Ms. Deanan and the concerned citizens are interested in an Auditor General audit of the city's Community Redevelopment Agency. Our staff recommendation is that you not consider bringing this request to the committee for consideration." Ms. Deenan first contacted our office in June 2011 as a citizen about the apparent misuse of CRA funds. She has been interested in an audit by the Auditor General since she first contacted us. Ms. Deenan has consistently contacted our office for the past 2 years with her concerns. We have continued to believe that an Auditor General audit is not the best approach, as one, it is a local issue, and two, there is insufficient need for a state taxpayer-funded audit. There were so many false statements made in these anonymous letters that even JLAC in this same letter to the chair and vice chair took it upon themselves to correct the incorrect statements that they were making about JLAC. And they had no way of knowing that so much of the other statements about our CRA were incorrect, so they couldn't correct those. But following that letter and that recommendation, Senator and JLAC Chair Abruzzo sent this letter to Cheryl Deenan. It's dated July 16, 2013, almost a year ago. And it says, in part, after a review of the information you provided by phone and email and JLAC's history with the City of Satellite Beach, we have determined that an audit of the city's Community Redevelopment Agency by the Auditor General is not recommended. Based on the information we have been provided, we do not consider this request to rise to the level of need in which we would request the members of the committee to direct an audit. Ms. Deenan never provided anybody at City Hall with this information. We did not know this. And even after getting this turned down by JLAC almost a year ago, Ms. Deenan continued trying to aid Mr. Ellis in his so-called audit, and even in our February 5th City Council meeting, made a motion for the council to go to the Auditor General and request an audit. So council needed to know this. You needed to have these documents. You will be provided with copies, and I want a copy of that 5-page chronology of events and the letter from the staff and the senator to be attached to the minutes of this meeting.
Any further comment?
That's it.
I would like to comment. I have no problem with any of that documentation being attached to the minutes. If my constituents come to me and I contact a senator or a commissioner, that's my right. It's pretty apparent that you'll do anything to discredit me and or some of the citizens. So no. Let me have my moment.
You're on.
I would like to have those documents in full. I'm tired of being blindsided by this information. You read only part of that letter that came from Senator Abruzzo's office. In fact, he said if we wanted to conduct an audit, it would be at the city's expense. So you kind of put a spin on things to make it look like I'm doing something underhanded or I violated a sunshine law or something like that, and I don't appreciate it. So I would appreciate it if actually all those documents are attached to the minutes. I have no problem with that.
Any further comment from council?
I guess the only question I have is, and I don't know, we'll just throw this out there, are there any apparent sunshine law violations?
None in what I've seen.
Okay. All right, that's all right. That's the only question I had.
Keep hunting.
Any further comments? Any further business before council? Hearing none, meeting's adjourned. Have a good Easter holiday season for everyone.